and welcome to AboutFACE Theatre presents 5 Questions With, and today's guest, Ciarán O'Reilly. Ciarán is an actor and the producing director of the Irish Repertory Theatre in New York, which he co-founded with Charlotte Moore in 1988, and which has now presented over 190 productions. Ciarán's many directing credits for the Rep include his Callaway award-winning The Emperor Jones and Drama Desk nominations for the Hairy Ape and Philadelphia Here I Come. His acting roles for the Rep include Dancing at Lughnasa and Juno and the Paycock, while other theatre credits include A Touch of the Poet with Roundabout and The Corn is Green on Broadway. His on-screen credits include The Devil's Own, Law and Order and The Knick. Ciarán was recently inducted into the Irish America Hall of Fame and was awarded the Presidential Distinguished Service Award for the Irish Abroad in 2019 by President Michael D. Higgins. Ciarán, you're very welcome.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here. You didn't mention The Field there, Paul, which you were a part of. That was also a Drama Desk nominated show that you starred in.
Well, you know, Ciarán, this is all about you, not about me.
So, Ciarán, we'll just dive right in. What play or experience first started you off in theatre?
It was Brian Friel's The Freedom of the City. It happened to be that I was in a bar across the street from a theatre, the Irish Arts Centre, that had a technical rehearsal going on whereby the actor had not shown up. And I was there having a drink and minding my own business when some member of the company says, "Hey, can you come over here and just stand in for the actor? You're giving everything in court here, and you don't even need to learn any lines. You can read it from your notebook because you're a cop." So I went over and I became a cop for an hour, and here I am 40 years later.
That's great.
And did you know anyone in the show, Ciarán, or how did they come to approach you? I'd been the bar was owned by a guy from Cavan. It was called the Breffni Stone, and it just happened to be across from the Irish Arts Centre, and I'd met some of the actors who were wandering in and out, and I forget which of them said, it might have been Brian Mallon, it might have been Mickey Kelly, who said, "Why don't you come over and do this? You know, there's nothing to it." That says you don't need to do, you know, there's nothing to it.
And had you acted before then?
Never.
Wow.
I'd never. I was like, I just arrived in New York basically, and I was 19 years old, and
wow.
you know, I had no idea what to do with my life, and but you know, somebody decided that they did know.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I love it. That's fantastic.
I love it.
Okay, so you were starting off with Brian Friel, so that's a pretty great start. But Ciarán, what's a great play that you love and why?
Well, you mentioned one of them that, and it's again Brian Friel, who I just worship. It's Philadelphia Here I Come. It's a play that's very special to me. I mean, I come from a small town, so Baile Beag is right there with that. You know, my father, I mean, it was SB, he was a counselor. My father was a counselor. I came from, you know, a background where, you know, it was, you know, not always, you know, Irish, you know, fathers growing up were not always necessarily the most touchy-feely. You know, they loved you deeply, but, you know, you'd have to figure that out for yourself. So that really spoke to me. And of course, just the incredible inner life that this poor young Gar O'Donnell on his way to the United States, and how rampant it was, and what a colorful life that lives within us all. You know, that if and Brian Friel just had the genius to you know, give an alter ego as a character to be able to express all the feelings that you know, none of us as a taciturn race have. So I think it's a great play on so many levels, and one of my top favorites.
Absolutely. You know, personal favorite of mine too.
Yeah, it's a great one. So can you tell us about a time in your theater life where things just didn't turn out as you expected or you anticipated them to?
Are you when you say that it didn't turn out, that the shows didn't necessarily come off the page? Do you mean by that, or
I think it's quite open, actually. I mean, to you, what, you know, it could be either as a director or an actor, if you had a vision for how you thought it was going to be and it didn't turn out that way, or even just your career or anything, you know, the very broad, very broad.
Yeah. Well, I would say an experiment that I had done with, there's the Emperor Jones, which you had mentioned, is one that I'm particularly proud of, mostly because it really was at the time treated as a very dated and a very possibly very racist play by Eugene O'Neill, a white man basically writing the history of blacks in America. And so it was a very dangerous play to do. And but what it turned out like way better than I could ever have imagined, mostly because I just happened to get in, you know, some of it became one of those plays that all of the design elements were just as important as almost the speaking part of it. It was so much got to do with visuals, lighting, set, and particularly sound and costumes, you know, because the costumes became the trees. And it was a hunch that maybe this could work in that way. And it did turn out to be a lot better than I ever expected it to be. But I wanted to give all the credit to the others, to the puppeteers and everybody who just jumped in and worked in sort of everybody doing the same play. Sometimes that's a very, you know, that's, I think the role of a director generally is to try to make sure that everybody around you are doing the same play, because sometimes that's not the case. Both from the actors and the designers, you think, you know, one is, you know, Noel Coward and the, you know, the other is David Mamet, you know, you just don't quite know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the, I can go and tell probably another story of something else, but but if you think that one suffices, I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, we're always curious about your stories, but that absolutely answers the question.
Yeah. Okay, I could say, well, we had some years ago, and early starting out, we got a phone call from Hal Prince, you know, who was one of the, you know, the biggest directors on Broadway, the biggest producers, an iconic figure in the American theater. And he had written a play on the life of Ciarán O'Reilly. And Hal, you know, he wanted to do it with Irish Rep, and would we do it? So I'll cut to the chase, is that we did finally get to do it in an off-Broadway theater. We didn't have our own space at the time, so we did a theater for the New City, a sort of a big empty space, which where Hal had the vision to create the life of Dublin that O'Casey was growing up in. And he made the most beautiful stage pictures. I mean, he brought in the cream of the crop as regards the design team. Peter Kazarowski was lighting, and Eugene Lee, who's, you know, had won Tonys for Sweeney Todd and was the, you know, the designer of Saturday Night Live. And, you know, he's the one that created Dublin and this fantastic looking place. But I don't know, with all of that, and it was super exciting to work with somebody like Hal, who just thought in very, very, very broad strokes. You know, he just had a vision and he just went for it like nobody. And it was so exciting to be in his presence. What he was not particularly good at was maybe breaking things down scene by scene with actors. So I don't know at the end of the day that it came off like we had all hoped that it would, but it was, I mean, it was a beautiful thing to look at, and it had an excitement about it without ever really, you know, nailing the life of Ciarán O'Reilly and him growing up and what he went through in his early years of poverty and blindness and all that, and growing into the writer that he became.
Yeah,
That's great. Okay, Ciarán. So you've been working in the theatre for over 30 years. So what is it that keeps you? I wasn't going to say. But what keeps you coming back to the theatre? What moves you? What excites you about theatre?
Well, it's such a good question these days, you know, because God knows we have all come up with alternatives to the live experience, and we, you know, despite best efforts, you know, it comes up wanting, you know, because it's as old as time. And you know, I know I'm probably not covering any new ground here when I say it's a primal need for people to get together and experience an event live, so that their hearts are beating at the same rate as as everybody else who's watching a show that's moving them, that they laugh in the same places. It's a shared experience. And what, you know, what drags me back to it is that it's always new. It's new on every night that you do it. As an actor, it's a new thing, and who's going to be out there, and who is it, especially, you know, when you get into long runs in theater. And I know in Dublin a long run is, you know, 4 weeks or something. You know, and in New York 4 weeks is a flop, you know. and that's just the way it is, you know. But so when you get into long runs and you're in a show, it's in your head, it's in there, so you have to find every night. You have to go and find a way, you know, to make it fresh. And you always do. You figure it out. You're doing it for, you know, for one person out there, and then you just do the show for them, and it works. So yeah, I don't know if that answers it, but that's what keeps me coming back, because it's new all the time.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
great. So can you tell us, you know, is there a tool from theater that you've learned or that you've used that you found helpful in the rest of your life?
I saw that question before, and I thought it was such a good question. Well, I will say that I think, and I think that theater people, you know, because they're supposed to be artistes. They're supposed to be, you know, their heads are just swimming all over the place with ideas and notions. They are the most organized group that I know. They are the ones who get there, you know, with you know, some exceptions there is, but for the most part, they're there at half hour, and they're ready to go on at curtain time, and they're there, and they have their lines learned, and they do it. So I sometimes compare, you know, theater, and I certainly, because we were in the middle of construction, you know, when we did a renovation of our theater, and I was very much involved, being there every day, trying to get this to move along, because it was a city-run project. And I just, each time, the parallels between the theater world and the organization of that, and the construction world, or the world of the city of New York and all of their things, we thought, the thing that I would, the takeaway of all, and I would say now, during COVID time, where the outlay of the vaccinations in Europe and Ireland and the United States, I say theater people should run the world. That's my takeaway from it, is that they have a sense of how to do things, and they do it in an orderly, and there's a hierarchy, and there's a protocols of what happens, and they're there for a reason, and they, you know, for the most part, we rock.
I think that's pretty perfect, Ciarán. Brilliant. Oh, this has been so great, Ciarán. So just as a bonus, can you tell us anything about what you're working on at the moment?
We're just doing a play by Elaine Murphy called Gem, that stars Lauren O'Connell, Brenda Meany, and Marsha Mason, who was nominated for 4 Oscars. So it's part of some things we've been doing quite a bit. It's where people shoot in their own homes, and then we edit it together. In the case, sometimes we've used green screens where we need to bring everybody into the same world and into the same, you know, into the same room or pub or wherever the play is set. in the case of Little Gem, the 3 characters are in 3 different places anyhow, so they can be just on their own. And Lauren, you know, happened to be in London, and Marsha's in Connecticut, and Brendan's in New York. So so that's coming out in a couple of weeks' time, I believe. That would be hitting the thing. And so we also have a show running right now that we did with the Vineyard Theatre in Goodspeed on the life, and that's called An Accidental Star, and it's the life and times of John Cullum, and that's been on. And we have, and we're very, very proud of this. It's a show called Poetic Reflections, Words Upon the Window Pane. And it's something that we have actually, because we can't open our doors, we decided to at least open our windows. And so it's in the windows of the Irish Rep right now. As you're passing, you can just go like this, and a poem will come on. It's a lot of it is it's Black and brown Irish people doing either their own poetry or the poetry of others like Heaney or Yeats. And it's a 3-part series broken down with different themes. And the Brickenhoff Foundation had filmed these all over Ireland in Cool Park, some with the Druid Theatre, you know, some of it was in Dublin. And so that's on there for the next several weeks. Now it's been on for the last 4 weeks. It's on for another, I think, 3 weeks more. And so we're very proud of that. And that's online as well. So if you can't get by the windows, you can go on irishrep.org, press on Poetic Reflections, and you get to see these various films.
Wow, brilliant.
Fantastic.
Ciarán, thank you so much. It's such a joy to speak with you and to talk theater with you.
It's totally my pleasure. I miss you guys in New York.
Yeah, we miss you too. And a huge thank you, of course, to the audience as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you liked the interview, please like it below and share, because, hey, theater makes life better. So we look forward to seeing you next time on About Face Theater Presents 5 Questions With. See you then. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and share. Thanks for watching.